outside, for having the tenacity to have stayed these 3 days. I think we deserve to give ourselves another round of applause. Thank you very much. I want to hand over to Dr. Macy so that she can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel. As we rightly pointed out, we will be having 2 lectures this morning. But before we go on with the lecture, we will call on the chairman of this plenary session, Professor Folashade Ogusola, to say a few words to us and start us off.
Coming and staying, and to say that we thank ASU for allowing us to continue, and that we stand in solidarity with them. Today we'll be listening to the arts and contemporary national issues, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what needs to be said. But to say that culture and the arts is what makes us civilized. So I'm really looking forward, and the one thing we certainly need in Nigeria is civilization. There's so much that we need to know more about ourselves, and I'm looking forward to this talk. I think the talk is for about 30 minutes. Ms. Dr. 30 minutes or 40? 30 minutes. So I'm going to call on Dr. Bosende Afolayan to give us her presentation. I'm sure she's going to do justice to it. Thank you.
From the Department of English, and I'm representing Professor Godini Gabriel Dara. The title of his paper is The Arts and Contemporary National Issues. In Africa, the arts have always played an active and critical role in the management of public affairs. The arts feature in the activities of secular and religious institutions. The conduct of individuals and groups are regulated and moderated by artistic events. In all African societies, seasonal festivals are held to celebrate and review important events and to subject political and social authorities to scrutiny. These artistic ceremonies and cultural Olympiads provide avenue for the display of new artistic forms and talents. In modern societies, newspapers and the mass media play this role. Despite the decline in the observation of indigenous ceremonies and cultural practices, the arts have remained a potent force for the regulation and control of private and public affairs. Nigeria's multilingual and multicultural setting offers a unique space for examining how the arts and artists respond to and shape national issues. It is not easy to scan the broad spectrum of what constitutes the arts. No less daunting is the task of determining the context of national issues. My assumption, that's Professor Gigi Dara's assumption, in this paper is that the organizers of the conference are interested in how topical events and discourses in Nigeria are reflected and refracted in various expressions of the arts. I propose to examine the topic from the point of view of relevance. How do the arts enlighten and influence people about public affairs? How much knowledge of the country's political, economic, ideological, and ethical experience do we get from the perspective of the arts and artists? Do the arts merely mirror or reproduce reality, or do they enlighten, edify, and enrich the people to seek freedom from the problems and the enigmas that they encounter in the society. It is through this set of questions that I hope to approach the fundamental issues of relevance. Nigeria is currently immersed in a quagmire of political, economic, and social crisis. At the level of national politics, there is great uncertainty about the direction the country is moving. The various institutions of governance appear impotent in dealing with the challenges of a modern society. The deadly rivalry and acrimony amongst the political elites and sectarian groups confuse the public as to what the mission of politicians is. The conduct of elections and the behavior of public office holders do not show that government in Nigeria exists for the purpose of providing security and welfare for the people. Corrupt and authoritarian use of power raises doubts about the nature of democratic differentiation in the country. In the economic sphere, the negative effects of recession and inflation in costs have impoverished the general populace. The devaluation of the national currency since 2015 has practically reduced the worth of incomes by over 300%. The dependency on the exports of crude oil undermines the national economy. Except in Lagos and Ogun states, industrial production is on the decline throughout the country, due primarily to shortfall in electricity and power supply. The rate of unemployment continues to rise phenomenally, and there are no programs being implemented to ameliorate the situation. Owing to economic hardship, violent crimes have overwhelmed the society as witnessed in cases of robberies, kidnapping, rape, and allied felonies. In many parts of the country, centrifugal forces and secessionist pressures continue to assail the national government, with various anonymous groups issuing quick notices to strangers and declaring imaginary republics. Insurgency and rebellious activities have compounded the situation of insecurity. The Boko Haram Islamic militia groups in the northeast of the country remains a major threat to national stability. Arm-bearing nomadic Fulani herdsmen are on rampage throughout the country, destroying crops, kidnapping and killing innocent people, and committing acts of rape and brigandry. The Niger Delta region, whose wealth of oil and gas sustains the country, is permanently on an insurgent mood, with armed militia groups agitating for freedom from exploitation and oppression by the government and all multinational companies. In the face of all this turmoil, the popular clamor for political restructuring and restoration of a federal system of government resonates in the mass media. Overall, Nigeria appears to be moving closer and closer to the brink, a situation akin to that of a season of anomie, described by Wole Soyinka in one of his major works of literature in the 1970s. How are the arts responding to and reflecting these myriad problems? Perhaps one of the dramatic responses from the community of creative arts is the sit-in campaign in Abuja by the Amumudonju group, coordinated by the radical popular musician Charlie Boy, Mr. Charles Okuta. The group is protesting the long absence of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been on medical vacation in the United Kingdom. Although the action was initially confined to the area of the federal capital, the message generated by it is a mighty one. Exploiting its privileges of open dissent, the group carries placards that urge the president to resume or resign. Songs are chanted to add to the drama. In keeping with the tenets of democracy, other groups are at the site to counter the opinions and messages of our don't do protesters. People are free to disagree with either side of the campaign. Nevertheless, the incident represents an important development in the use of art to support a political cause. Several factors are at play in the Abuja event. The identity of the popular musician adds to the media effect of the action. The live telecast of the action enhances the message as social media platforms recycle the scenes and draw the attention of millions across Nigeria and the world. The techniques of orality and technologized media are intertwined in the process. This is an illustration of what the American communication scholar Walter J. Ong adumbrated in his book, Orality and Literacy, The Technologizing of the World in 1982. Ong argues that with the advancement in communication technology, activities such as music and other performing arts can attain exponential dimensions and reach that which were hitherto impossible. As in other parts of the world, Nigerian popular music and performing arts have been transformed by developments in electronic and digital communication. The use of popular music to propagate political and social activities causes attained its highest revolutionary aesthetics from the 1970s. The Afrobeat musical genre, invented and developed by Fela Anikulapo Kuti, assumed the status of a political movement. Fela's brave words and sonorous voice were part of the pro-democracy uprising that finally pushed military dictators out of power. Other hybrid genres, such as high life, juju, reggae, and rap, have developed over the years to project the ideas of freedom and human rights beyond the violence of soldiers and the repressive power of the police and other instruments of state terror. Although new technology of communication has transformed the power of popular music, its use for political purpose seems to be declining. The media hype associated with successful musicians and the stupendous revenues that come from the practice have tended to blinker their imagination. The growth of the Nigerian video film called Nollywood industry has been phenomenal. Within 3 decades, the industry under the rubric of Nollywood has attained a status adjudged to be among the 3 of the biggest in the world, the others being Hollywood of the United States and Bollywood of India. It is remarkable that the industry developed in response to reversals in Nigeria's economic fortunes in the early 1980s. The spirit of self-reliance drove many talents and daring innovators to invest in the home video art. The country's socio-economic conditions have stifled the growth of many aspects of culture and the creative arts. Yet Nollywood has soared to become a global brand. Studies have shown that about 2,000 films are produced every year, with some releasing about 50,000 copies. The industry is rated to be hundreds of billions of naira in worth and creates employment opportunities for thousands along the value chain. The success story is not just because of the ingenuity of the artists and those who invest in the films. Nollywood films are popular particularly partly because their themes and aesthetic methods appeal to millions of viewers across the world. The international image of Nigeria is enhanced by the popularity of the films, particularly in the English-speaking countries. This is one area of cultural and economic globalization that can be regarded as positive. The facilities of South Africa's Africa Magic channel have been instrumental in this process. At the initial stage, the films were shown for only 7 hours per day, but the popularity changed this to a 24-hour per day program. Besides the English language channel, there are now Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and other channels. The home video phenomenon is growing. There is now the Kannywood variety based in the northern part, in the northern city of Kano. In the domain of the entertainment industry, the genre of stand-up comedy has developed apace. Within a decade, the art form has produced great names and extensive patronage. Stand-up comedians, like those of popular music, are celebrated for their courage in poking fun at institutions and personalities regarded as untouchables in the context of Nigeria's social ranking. As marshals of jest and laughter, the stand-up comedians are good in improvisation of topical stories and the use of exuberant banter and witty expressions. Like the folktale raconteur of old, the stand-up artists are versatile, innovative, and resourceful enough to hold their audiences spellbound. The use of anecdotes, the mixture of factual and fictional narratives, and appropriate kinetic gestures helps to create aesthetic pleasure and fulfillment. Through this fluid structure of the performance, the comedian is able to weave caustic remarks and criticism into the storyline. Detailed studies of the genre are awaited, but its emergence in Nigeria proves the point that art and literature are aesthetic beverages that help individuals and groups to cope with social and economic and emotional distress. The visual arts are a rich source of how creative culture responds to developments in the society. I have no competence to appraise trends in this field. However, various traditions and generations of fine and applied arts in Nigeria are known for enhancing the cultural identity of the country and ethno-national constituencies. Through the visual arts, we are able to trace the trail of aesthetic taste and values over the millennia. Works of painting, printing, sculpture, ceramic, and design reveal ancient knowledge and wisdom that give insight to contemporary issues. The histories of peoples and civilizations are preserved and transmitted in this art. For example, the world appreciates Nigeria's cultural heritage largely because of arts preserved from ancient epochs such as North, Benin, Igbo Ukwu, Ife, Owo, Nupe, Jonko, among others. The subgenre of cartoon arts and illustrations is well developed in Nigeria. Newspapers and magazines feature cartoon stories laced with juicy and satirical comments on topical events. These stories and comments conveyed in cartoon format are easy to understand and appreciate. Animated varieties of cartoon stories are transmitted via satellite television channels and are enjoyed by millions of children. Although there is no room in this paper to appraise the works of individual artists with iconic status, the works of Bruce Onapreapia are particularly outstanding in terms of topicality and relevance. I'm referring to his prints and portraits on environmental subjects ranging from the Sahelian drought in West Africa to oil-induced environmental disasters in the Niger Delta region. He uses nude figures to depict the insurgent and revolutionary role of women in the struggles for resource democracy in the Niger Delta. All traditions of written literature in Nigeria have been active in exposing the evils of political and moral corruption. Some early novels that explore the subject are Cyprian Ekwensi's Jagwanana, Chinua Achebe's No Longer Artist and A Man of the People, Timothy Aluko's One Man, One Machete, and Wole Soyinka's The Interpreters. The popularity of the theme has not waned with the years. Fresh insight into the idea of moral corruption, Helena Bila and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The sub-theme of exile and alienation in the works of fiction is an extension of the issue of how totalitarian rule, corruption, and incompetence in governance have instigated the migration of talents and intellectual resources from Africa to foreign lands. The struggle against human rights abuse in Nigeria is waged by both men and women of letters and journalists. The intensity of the anti-military campaigns of the 1980s and 1990s was sustained by literature and the creative arts. New generations of radical writers and activists were fostered by the anti-military resistance. Festus Iyali's novel, with the title Violence, appears to be the fictional anthem of the era. But the twin issues of rights abuse and environmental disaster dominate the literary works of the period. Ken Saro-Wiwa's work and Macedon epitomized the sacrifice made by activist artists in this regard. The quest for environmental justice has inspired more writings and public engagement. Niyo Shundari opened the floodgates of this protest literature in 1986 with his The Eye of the Earth volume of poetry. Poetry and verse are particularly suited to the articulation of songs of sorrow voice in the environment-related works. Odia Ofenmu and Tanure Ojaide are the most prolific in this area of politically charged literature. Over half of their titles deal with the politics of resistance against oppression and exploitation. Other voices in the radical choir are Tade Ipadeola, Ibiwari Ikiriko, Nnom Basi, Ogoga Ifowodo, Ebi Yeibo, and Ebiyo Ogbewe. It is important to end these short reflections by invoking the slogan, Bring Back Education in Nigeria. The greatest threat faced by artists and workers in the cultural industry is the failure of Nigerian governments to make education available and affordable by all. Education is the most basic of the human rights that must be enjoyed by all. The Ibadan-born revolutionary Adegoke Adelabu put the matter in a memorable form in 1952 in these words: education is the foundation of freedom. Ignorance is the basis of slavery. If you will free a people, first and foremost, educate them. The premier of the Western region, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, hearkened to these great summons and established the first free education scheme in which the arts can flourish and engage contemporary issues in vigorous and creative ways. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that was the plenary session, and the title was The Arts and Contemporary National Issues. We'll go back to the chairman to direct the affairs from now.
Art mirror reality, or do they enhance and improve that reality? From the paper, we certainly know that the arts embodies our cultural identity, forms the conscience of the people. It also captures the group values. It is a means for advocacy. It's the voice of the people. And that in the various forms, the arts can give very pungent, very deep, and sometimes unpleasant messages, but well couched in palatable form. We know that we have writers who have helped to shape our political discourse. We have the poets, we have the visual artists and the creative artists, all of them contributing to this nation, Nigeria, and in the way we are moving. But we also know that it is threatened by this lack, or should I say, by the lip service paid to education. Because for as long as, and I want to use the words she used, that as long as we don't have education as a foundation, there's no freedom. And Nigeria continues to trail behind. So at this point, I will open the floor for questions. Any questions? Yes. Please, could you say your name, your department, and keep it brief.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Oluwafemi from the Department of Business Administration. My very eloquent and brilliant paper, but my concern is about the music industry and some aspect of films. Yes, films. And the issue is purely about censorship. Some of our musics are a bit worrisome, and if you examine them, the contemporary ones, there are generational gaps in the kind of music we listened to in the 60s and 70s and what is being played now. And it appears the government censoring and, you know, the values that go into some of those music, nobody cares about them. Without being sentimental, some of us who are some religious inclination don't find some of those music very defined. Thank you.
So what is your, was it just a comment? Are you asking a question? Yes. What's the question?
The question is actually censorship and moderation or something. Yes.
The question is, shouldn't there be censorship? Do you want to write any other question?
Thank you very much. My name is Odu Kekoni. I'm in performing arts. Brilliant paper. Well, no doubt about it. D.G. Dara is one of the pillars of literature in Nigeria and a policymaker in the art. I wish he's here this morning because the question I want to ask has been directed to him. As a policymaker, there is a problem that is going on right now about the National Theatre, which I would have loved him and loved to hear more about it. The thing is that when the act that enacted National Theatre in 1977, and before then in '66, when we had the first festival in Senegal, the two components that makes the theater, National Theater, which was really maintained in 1977, but suddenly something happened this year. Just recently, the federal government now put somebody at the head of affairs of National Theater. Normally, it used to be management and artistic, but suddenly they now merge the two components together, which is very, very unrealistic. And we've been asking questions that why should that be? When you have theater management, then the artistic part of it, there should be somebody heading that. But now, we don't have anybody heading the artistic, which is the truth. We only have a manager that is controlling the whole thing, which is abnormal, because there won't be opportunity for the troop to function well. The second thing the second question is the Nollywood thing. The name Nollywood, we all know that it's a derogative name, but unfortunately, Nigeria invited, and we have Nollywood. Well, no problem. But what we told them then when they are inviting this name was that there will be conflict, and the conflict is now rearing its head. In America, we have Hollywood, which is synonymous to their own culture. But Nigeria and in America, that's not Hollywood, is one throughout America. Then we have Canwood in England. But Nigeria, as we have Nollywood now, suddenly we have Kannywood, which is in the north. Very soon we will have Igbo in the east. And Benin will say their own, Kwara will say their own. So this is the problem that we told them initially. But now the thing is here and nobody to call it. So I don't know if Dara, who is one of the policymakers, will have something to say about that. But honestly, brilliant paper. I love it.
Thank you very much. I think we will pass that on to Dr. Dara. Professor Dara, yes. But okay. Okay, one more question, then we need to move on because we started late.
We're still in sync.
We're still in sync. Okay.
We can take just one or two.
Okay.
My name is Daniel Idibia. I am a student of PhD at the Faculty of Law, Department of Jurisprudence and International Law. My question is concerning the funding of education. ASU has been at the forefront fighting for the funding of education. I have listened to the paper with keen interest, but we need a way forward. What is the way forward of how we are going to make Nigeria to take education funding seriously? What is the proposal? That's my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other question? Final question.
My name is Adenike Olajuku. My question is, in those days, we used to have library on the school timetable. And it is very compulsory that students are lined up to visit the library. Today we have open education resources. And it is as though students are being driven from the physical library to the online libraries. Now, my question is, if you visit the library by Agnes, just around Sabo there, you will not see the flow of students entering that library as we have, we had it in those days. My question is, what is happening to the physical library? What is the importance? Is there a relationship between the open education resources and the physical library? Is there a midway? Is there a midpoint? Or there are missing links? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Flores.
Thank you for the question. I hope I will be able to answer some of the questions. But if I'm not, I'll pass them to Professor Dara. Dr. Olufemi is worried about the kind of music that we listen to nowadays, that there seems to be a generational gap. You know, some people in the elderly, older group are singing sensible songs, and like a friend of mine told me this morning when they were playing Sonny Ade. She said that song, that is a song that now they are singing noises. I think that's very correct, and that there should be censorship. There is actually a censorship board for films. What I do not know, because I'm not in that field, is whether it is thorough or not. I wouldn't know that. Because there are certain things they pass on to the outside world that are not edifying. They do not project us in the right light. You know, for example, in Nollywood, all you see about Nollywood is that young people between 18 to 20 girls, they fight over a boyfriend, and the next thing is that they go to the herbalist. And you begin to say, is this actually what is happening in our society? These girls that we see all made up, do they actually go to the herbalist? And that there is this notion that herbalists are evil people. But culturally, these are people that deal with herbs. But the projection, the projection that we see in our Nollywood are that these people perpetuate evil. Will get to know whether the censorship board actually see these films before they are sent out. Then Mr. Olu wanted to know if, because Professor Dara is a policy maker, that you should be interested in the National Theatre, the fact that the management and artistry is now by one person, and there is no room for artistry and the troops to grow. I remember once upon a time that Femi Oshofisan was the manager of the National Theatre. What I do not know now is how it is being run. And then he's querying the fact that the name Nollywood was plastered on us. Actually, begin to say, what is in the name? If Hollywood is standing for United States films and Bollywood for India, I think we should also find a way of coining our own words for our films. But you begin to ask again, what is in the name? Is the name capturing, is that art? Is it capturing our cultural artifacts? Is it projecting us in the right way? I think that should be our concern. Mr. Daniel was talking about the funding of education, and in the paper I read on behalf of Professor Gigi Dara, he said he's recommending 30% of the budget to be placed for education. I think that is his own opinion. And Dr. Oladipo wanted to know why students are now running away from the physical book and they are more interested in the soft copies. I teach grammar in the Department of English, and I come to class and I say, bring out your books, and some of the students tell me, we have it on our phones. And I tell them, what if this phone is stolen? What happens? I'm still a believer in the hard book, in the hard copy. It's still the authentic thing, even though the world seems to be moving towards the use of online, internet-based books. I think I've answered all the questions in my own way, but I'll pass them to Professor Dara.
Well, I think this calls for the chairman's wrap-up. And I think I'm going to give some opinion and hopefully spark debate. Censorship. There are schools of thought that believe that censorship should be minimized. Who censors and on whose values are we? We're a multi-cultural country. Where does censorship end? I think we must have some form of censorship, but we have to be careful that we do not put religious flavor, because we all don't share the same religion. So the censorship cannot be coming from religion, because then you are infringing on some other people's rights. That's one. Two, sometimes, and this is personal, and I'm sure there will be those who will disagree. When we're young, There are things we do that we outgrow. Stopping them from doing everything will not, as somebody said, the absence of temptation does not necessarily mean character is built. It is the ability to withstand temptation. So when you remove everything, the day it happens, it's like having a child, you don't let him go out, you don't let him do anything. The day you leave him, because you will not be there forever, he's just going to go crazy. So the world is not cotton wool. What we need to do is to teach values. And you teach values because there are bad things out there. So there will be some censorship, I'm sure, but I think we need to be careful. Who censors and how far does it go? The second one is about technological disruption. Whether we agree or not, we're in the age of technological disruption. It has been said that in the next 20 years, 65% of jobs that people will be doing have not even been developed. A lot of what we have now would have disappeared. The question I want to ask really is, how are we adapting? We cannot stay and say the books, we must use paper books. It started at a time, maybe it's going. And the question is, how do we, and if we intend to keep it, how are you making it interesting for these technological people? What is the library doing to bring them in? Because at the end of the day, it's not really about paper, or that the government, and from the history, that government can adequately fund education forever. No roads, no hospitals, no food. There's so many things to be done. Do we really think we can continue with free education? Now, the question is, how do we ensure, and again I'm throwing this open for us to all think about it, because this free education has not brought quality education at all. If anything, it's getting worse. Do we not think sooner or later we're all going to start to think about paying some money, and that for the poor people, that government should actually give bursaries and find alternate ways of funding? But this free education, from where I'm sitting, has failed, at least for all levels. We might choose where will it be free, up to where. Will university education be absolutely free? Because what we have now is actually free education. Paying 50,000 for university education per year is free education. But can we sustain it? So I'm just going to leave that with all of us to start thinking about it. Certainly we need alternate modes, and we need help for the poor. Thank you very much.
I want to say a big thank you to the chairman for that session. Now we move to plenary session 6. Plenary session speaker is the CEO, Allied Technical Systems Limited. But the topic is financial crimes, ICT, and e-governance. Please let's give him a round of applause once again as I invite him to the podium for his sir.
I thank you very much for this opportunity to be here today. Even though the subject I am supposed to address has been indicated as financial crimes on ICT, I humbly deferred to that topic, and I suggested that something that I was more comfortable with should be included in the program, and I got the permission to substitute the title to the successful resolution of the oppressive contradictions in Nigeria's economy. I had Professor Mishola at the tail end of our discussion expressing concern about the ability of government to provide education. Yes, there may be constraints to that, but if the resources of this country are properly applied and the best practice recommendations of the United Nations of 36% of all annual budgets to be dedicated to the provision of education and educational infrastructure, I believe even if we do not rank amongst the most educated people in the world, we probably would, if we don't rank, if we are not the most educated, we probably rank among the most educated. But I really want to share with you my perspectives with regards to the economy. I have always believed that the challenges with the economy is not that of funding, but the deliberate mismanagement of the funds that are available in a manner that is so subtle that it is similar to somebody slapping your face and you are expressing gratitude. The issue is not that of money. Indeed, if we had 10 times the amount of funds that are currently available, I dare say we would even be worse than where we are today. But you would say, how can I be so bold as to say so? I hope that at the end of this presentation, everyone in this hall will be convinced that we have been made fools of by the people who control our destiny and our resources. The topic for today is the successful resolution of the oppressive contradictions in Nigeria's economy. We will quickly go through this in as short as possible the time available so that I don't bore you. But I'm certain, or I do hope, that a prescription for good health should not bore you. We will look at the housing deficit in the country, in some countries. We will look at the potential fees available. We chose housing for this purpose because the subsector of housing is probably the most important galvanizer of economic activity in any economy. So we'll look at that. We'll also look at the solutions to industrial prosperity because there can be no doubt that at the moment we are severely challenged. If anything, industrial capacity is probably less than 50%. And if an indicator is required as to the level of industrialization, I think the increasing number of unemployed in the country may be adequate testimony. We'll look at the contradictions in the economy and the critical contradictions triggered by certain factors. We'll look at inflation. We'll look at the CBN's crime artillery against inflation. And we'll also look at the products of the persistent burden of excess liquidity. Ultimately, we'll look at the payments reform, which I think is the most important part of how we can get out of this quagmire in which we find ourselves. You will observe from the chart housing deficits in some countries. You will find that Nigeria has a projected housing deficit of about 17 million units, according to the finance ministry recently. Although the global homeless statistics has indicated that this is nearer 24 million. In relation to the population of the country, we find that possibly 1/8 of the population is probably housed at the moment. I would also doubt the figure of 17.5 million for Ghana because we are many times bigger than Ghana's population, so I don't think the housing deficit could be the same. But that notwithstanding, the idea is to say if we had things done in the appropriate manner, for example, a component of the building subsector, you couldn't do a proper building really without architectural design and quantity surveyors would have to come in and all that environmental impact analysis.
before you have the bricklayers, the carpenters, and so on and so forth. But let's assume that in this particular case, we use the example of the quantity surveyors, with whom I had a similar discussion last month. If the average fee paid to quantity surveyors within this context of providing 24 million units of housing for Nigerians, the value to the subsector of quantity surveyors alone would be about 2.5 trillion naira. That's about a third of our current budget. But I wouldn't put much faith on the nominal values we're talking about here, because nominal values don't mean anything if they're not related to real values, which are denominated, for example, in international currencies such as the dollar or the euro or the yen. But I want to pose the question here. I said at the beginning that our problem is not that of money, but the process by which the money is infused into the economy. I have a chart here, primary requirements for industrial and economic prosperity. Can I have that chart? The next chart? Yes, thank you. You would find here, and maybe I should pose a question. I said primary requirements for industrial and economic prosperity. Around the little rectangle there, you will find that the major factors that drive economies everywhere in the world: inflation, exchange rate, power supply, and interest rate. And almost in every instance, we have a significant deficit. But one thing, one single thing, is responsible for our inability to enjoy best practice rates with regards to these factors. For example, in the area of inflation, I think the current inflation rate is about 16% or thereabouts. But I dare you to indicate any economy anywhere in the world that has successfully transformed itself or sustained growth with inflation rates at more than 2 or 3%. So if you are training to be Usain Bolt and you keep recording track times that are 50% less than Usain Bolt's time, you must know that you are doing something wrong. So may I throw this question to everyone here who would want to volunteer an answer? What is this factor that makes it impossible for us to get best practice rates of inflation of 1–2%, or indeed to get cost of funds at rates that are beneficial to the economy? There is hardly any serious business that can be done and sustained when you have to go to the bank and borrow 25%, borrow funds at 25% interest rate. I dare you again to tell me any economy in the world that you would emulate or would want to travel to in search of greener pastures, where cost of funds to the real sector is anywhere near 25%. By the same token, you don't always find in successful economies anywhere, you will never find exchange rate volatility of the nature of the Naira exposure that we have experienced in the last few years. Of course, power supply is also important, but you know, power supply is also a factor of these three factors of inflation, interest rate, and exchange rate. So who will volunteer to identify the rabble-rouser that makes it impossible for us to enjoy best practice rates that would make us compete effectively with serious-minded, more successful economies elsewhere? So who can volunteer or who would volunteer with it? Yes, please. Good morning. Sorry?
Politics. Wait for the microphone.
Right.
I mean, I said standing on the existing protocol.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's politics.
Okay, thank you very much.
Everything is politicized in Nigeria.
Excellent, good. Politics, any other takes? Any other person who thinks that they know what is, why interest rate is so high, why inflation is so high, why exchange rate instability is there? Is it politics or any?
Thank you very much. I think it is mismanagement
Mismanagement is a very big word. Specific mismanagement in what area? Any other takes? Yeah? We are majorly import dependent. Well, that may be a possibility. Yes, any other?
Corruption.
Corruption, maybe. Corruption drives interest rate, drives exchange rate, drives inflation, maybe. Who else here? Yeah.
Incompetent leadership.
Incompetent leadership. Again, that's a very broad umbrella. But I want something specific that you say, look, when I did chemistry many years ago, when you put a little drop of one thing or the other in water, it changes the whole water. I'm looking at that single factor that, you know, what's the litmus test? Sorry? Selfishness, okay. Well, don't let me take any more of your time because, you know, time is of the greatest essence. But I do believe that you understand what where I'm coming from, because really no economy grows when you have to pay, when industrialists have to pay 25% for cost of funds. You will maybe say it is possible for me to use my own money to build my own business. That may be possible at the beginning, but truly, if you want conglomerates that could employ thousands and hundreds and thousands of people, an expansion that could be of great benefit to people, so that you can enjoy the advantages of big-scale production, for example, you would need to borrow money, whether you like it or not. But you would not be able to succeed. You would be a casualty if you had to borrow that money at 25%. Also, you'll find that if inflation, let me ask a question. How many people, and I ask this question with all due respect and humility, how many people has been deliberate and has been personally, directly affected by Boko Haram in this hall at the moment, that has a personal direct loss, impact, or whatever? No. How many people has been directly affected by the Niger Delta militant activity, personally with a direct impact, adverse impact on life? No. How many people have gone to the market and entering into the shops, comes out with the feeling that somebody has stolen my money? How many people? That is what inflation does to you. Inflation is no respecter of anybody. That is why it's so important that inflation must be kept at 1 or 2%. In sensible, successful economies everywhere, inflation is never more than 2%. When you have inflation at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20%, the reality is that we are all doomed. Because why? We are all going to be pensioners ultimately. Okay? And you know, pension incomes don't increase annually. It's almost static. And if a pensioner like me, you, professors or whatever, who haven't stolen money, our pension, in 5 years' time, you visit them, you'll be sorry for them. Because why? If inflation has taken 15% of their income for 5 consecutive years, you can be sure that the amount of money they are earning would not be able to feed them. So these are the realities. Inflation, cost of funds, exchange rate, even power supply. The main problem we have in power supply, you'll be told, is funds. You don't expect people to go borrow at 25% to give you power, and then you tell them not to charge a market rate. So you find that these three factors are at the bottom. Somebody said corruption, somebody said politics and things like that. But you know, even if you have a gathering of angels, and there are no controls, or put it this way, if you went to a church, you know they have church rats in churches. The church rat, how do they look? Very lean, agile, and smart, yeah? Because they are lean, there's no excess food for them to eat. Go to a bakery where you have all kinds of droppings on the floor and everything. What do you find? Fat cat rather than rats. So you find indeed that the reality is that you will have corruption if the environment is right. That is why we have corruption. Not that we are all individually bad people, but if you have an environment that encourages corruption, you will definitely have the kind of country in which we find at the moment. Next slide, please. So, the answer to this is what? Can anybody see what's in the middle of that rectangle now? Excess liquidity, excess money, excess supply. Who would not wish that excess supply of money should be their lot? I'm sure we would wonder, how can excess supply of money be damaging when you say, in order to get better, you need more money? So how can excess be a problem? But that really is the issue. We have too much money within the system. You don't have to believe me, but if you are attentive to the news regularly, every month you will hear that the 3 tiers of government have been allocated 400 billion, 500 billion, whatever, to share amongst themselves. That is not big money, but within the context of how the economy is run, it becomes it translates into excess money. So you find that inflation is what? Any student of economics here, what's the definition of inflation? Any economic student here? Well, I'll help you. Too much money chasing too few goods, okay? Right. So it means that if inflation is continuously at 16%, it means that you have what? Too much money chasing too few goods. If inflation is also as high as 16%, see, inflation and the cost of funds are related factors. You will not, for example, accept my offer to borrow 1 million from you at 10% when inflation is 16 or 17%. Because if you lend me a million naira, you'll be expecting to collect maybe 1.1 million at the end of the year. But if inflation is at 15 or 20%, that 1.1 million is split simultaneously with various other contradictory factors. I need to just say that during the Abacha years, 1994 to 98, I recall, had just about total $4 billion worth of reserves, and we were told by the authorities that this could only last us 4 months if we didn't earn a single farthing more, a single cent more. But what was the exchange rate during those 4 years? 80 naira to a dollar. It remains stable at 80 naira to a dollar. Now, we had a situation where price of crude oil went to 160 and our reserves went as far as $60 billion worth of reserves. And we were told that the $60 billion would last us, if we didn't earn a single cent more, for up to 25 months. But what was our exchange rate? 155 naira to a dollar. Isn't that something wrong there somewhere? If you have $4 billion, 4 months in post cover, your exchange rate is 80 naira, and now you have $60 billion worth of reserve, almost 12 times, 13 times more. And you were told that even if you didn't sell a single barrel of crude oil, that amount of money you had as reserves would keep your exchange rate stable for 20-something months. And yet, the exchange rate is 155. So you have the same contradiction of having huge reserves and, for example, $30 billion, that's what CBN is supposed to be sitting on. But we are looking for some months ago, we were looking to borrow $500 million. Why should you have $30 billion of your reserves earning little or no yield? And then you say, I need to borrow $500 million. And you go and borrow that $5 million and pay interest on it. Meanwhile, your $30 billion is sitting idle in an account, which will be used by the people who keep it to also lend to people who would come and borrow and lend to Nigerian money. In other words, you keep your money at JP Morgan or whatever, you domicile it there, and you tell JP Morgan, please look for people who would lend me money at 7%. JP Morgan is probably paying you 0.5% to hold your money. And JP Morgan calls some friends and says, look, there are some crazy people in Nigeria. We have their money, but they say they want to borrow it back. So can I give it to you and you go and say, I'm bringing in foreign direct investment? And of course they can't bring this money. Okay? And then they lend it back. We have a very crazy situation at the moment where we have even gotten to the point where I don't know whether I explained the issue of excess liquidity mopping up significantly, but even if I don't, maybe you would understand. When I say we now have a situation where the CBN mops up this surplus naira at 18% interest rate, okay? 18%, it means that they are taking out money. Money that they are taking out, which they mop up by selling treasury bills, they are not expected to use it or apply it for any infrastructure. They are not expected to apply it in any formal sense, but to sterilize the funds and keep the money out of the market. So that is why I said earlier, while you're projecting to spend 7 trillion naira in your budget, the CBN is hoping to mop up that, take that money and pay up to 18% interest rate. So if you do not complain and you clap for the CBN, and please don't get me wrong, I am not referring to this CBN governor alone. All the CBN governors, from the first Sanusi to Soludo to what's the name of the other guy? After Soludo. Anyhow, all of them, without exception, the second Sanusi, and then of course this Nathan. They have consciously, deliberately recognized that nobody is looking at what they're doing. Because I don't think this is a matter of ignorance. I have just explained this in a few minutes and everyone here understands. I have been writing about these things for 15 years. I have not been challenged. If I have been saying nonsense, I believe that I would have been put to shame and I would keep quiet. But nobody even asked, why isn't anybody interrogating what Mr. Boyle is saying? Because why? The system is deliberately created to make sure that you will be so concerned with your own daily life you will not be able to think. You see, I say this and we laugh, and that's it. We should be crying. In reality, somebody is slapping you and you're laughing. Anyhow, so you have a situation where you already have dollars. Did any one of you put your hand up and say, Mr. CBN, Mr. God, what are you doing? What are we doing with the $17 billion we are having? And you say you want to go and borrow $500 million. Why did you come to the University of Lagos? Is it just to learn and get a degree? No, you're supposed to. So, you have this contradiction of too much naira creating bellyache. You also have the same problem with dollars, too much dollars in a monopolistic auction, also creating problems. So the next chart here is just to show how ridiculous these lies have been and how silly we have all been. I include myself amongst you. You will see, with the naira race subsisting simultaneously with increasing CBN reserves, we will find that between 1996 and 1998, as I said earlier, we had a total of $4 billion worth of reserves. What was our exchange rate? 18 naira to the dollar. 2003, the thing went to 8 billion reserves, and then it was 137. 2007, we went $54 billion, and then it went. So you can see what I'm saying. It is totally abnormal for educated, intelligent people who went through the walls of a university to be the citizens of a country where dollars reserves are increasing and the exchange rate is depreciating. And they don't say anything. They say, which one concern we will overlook? That kind of thing. So you find that, can someone please explain to me why the naira exchange rate depreciates with increasing reserves and equally depreciates with dwindling reserves? It is abnormal. So the next chart is the products of persistent burden of excess naira liquidity. Of course, as I said, excess naira liquidity will lead to irrepressible inflationary spiral. It will also lead to higher cost of funds to the extent that even the public sector will also borrow at higher. So you see, a situation where the authority deliberately, consciously instigates the cost of borrowing, consciously, and then come back and say, the past 3 finance ministers, I remember Okonjo Iweala saying some time ago, when a reporter from this day challenged and said, but why is interest rate so high? And she said, oh, I really don't know about that, but I need to interrogate the banking committee and the bankers and the CBN. And I thought, am I hearing right? A finance minister that doesn't understand why interest rates are high? And the other lady came on, and she also said, oh, we must bring down interest rates. Without explaining how she was going to do so. And she also appeared flabbergasted that the interest rate was high, without letting out that excess liquidity is the problem. Would anybody here borrow money they would not use and pay 18% interest rate? Would anybody do that? So why are we sitting down and letting people who run our affairs and complain that there's no money borrow money that they don't need to warehouse? So, increase in production costs, everybody says, oh, let's diversify our economy. You can't diversify the economy with mouth. The factors that help you to diversify the economy are these factors I've spoken about here. Inflation at 16% makes it impossible for you to expand consumer demand. Because as I said, you go to the shops, you can't buy as much as before. If you used to buy 1 loaf of bread in your house a week, and you find that because of cost of funds rise, inflation rising, you can only buy 1 loaf every 1 week or so. What happens to the bakers? They collapse. And when they collapse, what happens? They drive away people. So cost of funds is integral to what we are talking. Don't let anybody deceive you and say, we are going to bring you intervention funds. Anybody talking about intervention funds when excess supply of money is already a problem is deceiving you. Because they say, and that's it. The central bank itself says, well, Doris and sister, I think they dashed you about $10 billion they gave the University of Lagos or something like that. And you all celebrated. And if the man give money, give you celebrate him. Because he has no right to do that. The CBN Act does not provide any intervention possibility. Where do they get the money? What business do they do to make a profit and give you money? But after stealing the money, he got all the money. If you mention his name anywhere, I hear it, they say, no, you can't give us money. Sorry for that. So you have productivity and the employment of business, as I've said. You really can't get that so long as you have the problem of excess liquidity. And of course, as I say, weaker naira exchange rates, even when food prices and foreign reserves are increasing. Again, that's a contradiction. But the important thing is that fuel, the reason why they have been battling with fuel, they are not able to do the right thing and deregulate the fuel supply market is very simple. It is the exchange rate. You see, when people say, but petrol is our own, it's in our backyard, it should be cheap. They have sold you that lie and you bought it hook, line, and sinker. It is not the petrol that is. I have 5 minutes more. I don't know whether I don't know how I can handle it. They say truth is bitter sometimes, but I think we have to, okay? So all the above factors will ultimately affect inflation, and it will be impossible. I'm telling you, these are the realities that are facing you. Look, please, do me the favor of listening to me. If you don't hear me, at least when I get to Papa God, I say, I tried, but the people didn't hear, so, so all the above factors would not make it possible for you, for example, to have the price of fuel ever coming down. Because, yes, you have oil at your backyard, even though it's not in your backyard, it's in the backyard of the Niger Delta, but that's another story. And you expect that the price of fuel it is not the crude oil that is the issue, it is the money that you get from crude oil that is the issue. So if you have crude oil and you continue to sell for higher values and you earn more money as a result of that, whose fault is it if the process of you infusing that money into the economy destroys your economy? Nobody's fault. So it is the value of the naira that should be stronger when you have crude oil and crude oil prices are going up. And when the value of the naira, the value of the dollars that you earn from crude oil is rising, you would automatically expect your naira to also be stronger, but it will not be stronger because the purpose of the process of taking the dollars and infusing it into the economy involves this, let me auction rations of dollars in a market that is already suffocated with naira. Where did the naira suffocation come from? Has anyone here ever thought of, at the end of the month when they distribute the three tiers of government, they tell you we are paying $400 billion. Do you ever wonder or question what happened to the dollars? Because they tell us that 80% of what they share is dollar denominated. So where's the dollar? It means that somebody has captured the dollars in the first place, determined its own weight, and printed naira and give to you. And when you need your dollars to order whatever for your state or whatever, you take your own naira that they are giving to you and you go and buy the dollars a second time. Is that not a Mugu arrangement? So let us move to so that I can satisfy the people who want to play with it. The next slide is the curse of inflation. So the most important responsibility of every government is security and the management of inflation at levels which support investment and promote increasing economic and social welfare. Definition of inflation, as I said earlier, surplus money chasing fewer goods and services. Best practice rates of inflation anywhere, go and check, UK, US, all those places that young people want to run. The inflation rate is hardly ever more than 1 or 2%. And we are celebrating what? 60%, and we accept it as a norm. So, these inflation rates of 16% plus will instigate over 20% cost of funds, as it is impractical for inflation to be higher than cost of funds. So the consequences of high inflation rates, this includes the contraction of consumer demand, as I said earlier. If you have a situation where 20% of your income is being taken away by inflation, it means you cannot buy the same number of things that you used to buy annually. Consequently, there will be a contraction in your demand, and the people producing those demand, like bakers, whatever, they will all also contract their own capacity or reduce their capacity and throw out people into the job market. So you would have also as a result. So if you hear anybody talking, we are going to diversify the economy and everything, please know that they are lying, because there's no way you can diversify your economy without doing these three things. And exchange rate. If you haven't attended to that, it is, in fact, think about it. Is there any administration in the last 20 or 30 years that has not said we are going to diversify the economy? No. They all say so, you believe them, and they break your, dash your hopes and everything, and the next person comes, he says the same thing, and you get carried along. And you don't ask that, how are you going to diversify the economy? How is it possible for Nigerian industries to compete when cost of funds is beyond their reach? In some countries, which are more successful than ours, do you know, the real sector lends at 2 or 3%. And then they tell you to go and compete with these people while you are borrowing at 25%. I mean, no, that's a no-brainer. So all static incomes will command nil value after 6 years, and budget implementation will become severely challenged. So please don't celebrate the annual budgets. In the first place, they mean nothing, because the value you're talking about is too small. The real sector is where the action is. The amount of funds that is available in the real sector is totally elastic. Infinitely elastic. But they want to stop you from borrowing from the real sector to borrow. That's why they instigate what? Higher cost of funds. So the person who is saying, I am your doctor trying you, is actually injecting you with something that will kill you. So CBN's prime artillery against inflation. The prime objective is to attack the root cause of inflation, okay? i.e. the persistence of persistent surplus naira, otherwise called excess liquidity. And the standard weapons at CBN's disposal are as follows. They will raise their monetary policy rate, that's the rate at which banks are forced to come and borrow from the CBN. Okay? They will raise it, And if the monetary policy rate of the central bank, for example, is 1 or 2%, okay, if banks can borrow at 1 or 2% from the central bank when they need money, of course, if they lend to the real sector, if they add another 5%, it will be about 7%. But in a situation where they are having to borrow from central bank at 14%, and they must make a profit and take care of all their overheads, of course, it must be 70%. And then, unfortunately, central bank and the government would even blame the banks, and say, "Ah, we are trying, the banks that are not helping you." But that's not so. Because why? The cost of funds in the open market is predicated by how much the banks are borrowing from CBN, which is the monetary policy rate. So if CBN, or if you expect CBN to be able to bring down the cost of funds, then you should ask them, then bring down the monetary policy rate. But CBN cannot bring down its monetary policy rate because why? If it does, it means that the claim of so much liquidity within the system would make it possible for banks to lend easily, and that would fire inflation even beyond 50%. You know, as I said earlier, you have never been affected by Boko Haram or Niger Delta militants, but every one of us, and you see, when I said, well, we all laugh, but we know that that laugh is just for sure. What is burning in everybody's hearts, in everybody's homes, as a result of inflation? You mention Boko Haram, say, forget that one, go, or that one, the money you not go, no? Before you know it, another thing. And this happens in all homes. Rising inflation is economic terrorism. So when you have this kind of situation, where CBN is deliberately increasing the cost of funds and crying wolf, it means that CBN, ironically, the CBN's MPR would also compel higher cost of borrowing for its own treasury bills. You can imagine, is it not crazy? The same person that's going to borrow, first of all, increases, makes sure that the cost of borrowing is high, and then goes and borrows at it. I mean, is this a normal, is that a normal reaction? No, but we accept it. And whether you laugh, you don't care, or whatever, that's how you have been ruled. That is the reality. Don't let anybody deceive you. If you want any corroboration of that, then you should ask them, why haven't you addressed what this man has been saying for 15 years? They can't kick their feet against the nails. That's just the truth. So you now have a situation where, go to the next, just to run this down very quickly. I just want to show you now the system that creates all these problems. Okay? The title is How Excess Liquidity Becomes an Unyielding Destabilizing Challenge. This is how the situation goes at the moment. If, for example, we earn $1 billion worth of export revenue from crude oil, okay? You see the yellow line. The CBN would unilaterally determine what the exchange rate would be, print Naira, because they are the custodian, they are the owner of the Naira. They have the rights and powers to do that. Print the Naira equivalent after determining exchange rate, print the Naira equivalent, and then they pay to the, where the arrow goes, the yellow arrow goes, to the constitutional beneficiaries, the three tiers of government, MDAs, and all of them. They pay them what? Naira. Okay? Follow the yellow arrows. And then what happens? The constitutional beneficiaries, in this particular case, in our modern times, we're talking of additional 305 billion, or is it 365 billion, whichever. Nobody even knows what the rate of the exchange is. But just assume it's 305. They take the 305 billion, they pay it into their separate accounts. They say TSA. Forget about TSA. At the end of the day, TSA is only as useful so long as the money has not been spent. Once the people who have these allocations, once they start paying contractors, paying children's school fees, paying this, it goes what? Back into the commercial bank's custody. So you have this yellow thing. The CBN has $1 billion to share, brings 305 Naira, pays to the constitutional beneficiaries, they lodge it in the banks, and what happens? The 305 billion, together with the existing liquidity in the system, becomes compounded. But that's not the end of the show. Because you find in addition to compounding the current liquidity in the system with that 305 billion, if you have a situation where what they call the cash reserve ratio, that's another instrument which I did talk about there, that the central bank would use to control excess liquidity. What they then do is they say, that 305, let's assume that the cash reserve ratio is 10%. It means the 305 billion naira can be a platform to create another 3 trillion naira if your cash reserve requirement is on. So in other words, so long as you have a cash reserve ratio of anything 10% or whatever, you are, in fact, the higher you raise your cash reserve ratio, it means you are deliberately constricting consumption and expenditure. Because why? You want to reduce liquidity. But the point is, where did the liquidity come from in the first place? So the yellow lines again, they pay it into their bank account, and what happens? The liquidity situation is swollen, as you have seen there. Existing market liquidity swells by 305 billion. And what happens? At that point, the CBN says, look, oh, this liquidity is too much, oh, it's going to drive inflation beyond. And then what does it do? That's when it steps into the market to say, banks, don't worry, I'll borrow this money back and I'll pay you 18%. This is reality, my friends. I'm not making it up. This is reality. So they borrow back the money, the same money that they injected into the system. They prevent it from going to the system, and then they take it back, and they take it to sterilize it because it will create inflation. That's why I said when you have a situation where the custodian of the naira is giving out intervention funds in a market that is suffocated with naira, it is a joke. So you have a situation where they mop up the naira, they warehouse it, and then what happens to the dollars the CBN bought, the $1 billion? The $1 billion, now don't forget, 305 additional billion has gone into the market to compound the liquidity situation in the country. Now, the CBN takes out of the $1 billion initially, maybe takes out 200 billion or $100 million and say, I am going to auction this $100 billion to all of you who have all this naira. Of course, the naira rate is doomed. So consequently, you have a situation where this arrangement will continuously pauperize. But what does the bank do? The banks now have, if you look at the right-hand corner here, you'll find that the banks now have in their custody both the naira and the dollar, because the CBN has auctioned the same dollars to the banks. So the banks have the dollars, they have the excess naira. So what do? Then the banks are supposed to sell their dollars to industrialists, importers, and things like that. Okay? That is where all the ururu and mago happens. Because once they get the dollars, the issue of transparency becomes blurred. Okay? So they are now supposed to remit this to XYZ supplier, creditor, or whatever abroad. That is where the problem lies. So you will find that the $1 billion additional revenue, which you earn, which is supposed to have given you some kind of support, has in fact worked what? Against you. So the bottom line is excess liquidity is a big problem, as I said earlier on. The next chart here, you'll find that even the government understands what I'm saying very thoroughly. The Vision 2020 document, which was I think prepared about 10 years ago, it also recognizes that you cannot be talking of development without talking of monetary policy. So in their monetary policy prop, this is a lift off from the Vision 2020 document. It says, dealing with the excess liquidity challenge requires innovative approaches in view of the source of the problem. He didn't mention the source of the problem. In view of the source of the problem, obviously, is the infusion that I'm told to stop.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when you meet a man who is passionate about his beliefs, that is how it is. But I think it deserves much more than that. And that's a round of applause. Thank you very much, sir. The only reason why I am following the instruction I've been given is because of time constrictions. Sorry about that, sir. I'm going to hand over to the chairman to give our remarks and then allow time for a couple of time for questions and answers. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will not give remarks because I know there are burning questions that people want to ask. I will just remind us that we have been thoroughly educated, and that we have been challenged as the academia. What are we doing? Why are we asleep? So I'm just going to throw the floor open for people to ask questions. And let me also mention that I'm sure many of you have many things to ask. So immediately after this session, you can meet with Mr. Boyo to discuss with him. So questions? Yes, we will take about 4, and please keep your questions short, sharp, no essays, professors and academics, short, sharp, please. Yeah. Very short.
Yes, it's going to be short. We did a play here on Tuesday, and I spoke about in the last 25 or 30 years, the system has been so devastating in terms of our economy and infrastructure. Then they are talking about restructuring. What are we restructuring when you don't even have a structure on ground? Now, I'm throwing this back to everybody, because what we believe in is to just have a PhD, write few papers, and become a professor, and just go around earning salaries. Shall we say that a Mefele must go? A Lumelu must be arrested? And everybody in this hall, I'm saying, let us all go out now and start campaigning on what Boyo has just said. I don't know how many times we've been to jail. We have been there. So my question is that, what are we going to do? Shall we say Emefiele must go? Because some of us writers, we have written so much about this, and we have been put to jail. You know very well. I've been there in 1994. What I'm saying is that everybody keep quiet in the universities. They don't write, they don't say anything about it because they want to earn salary. They don't care. So, please, this is the mouthpiece of the nation. UNILAG, you can get up now, University of Ife, and the Bible. Write about this thing. Thank you very much.
My name is Babatunde Tijani. I want to appreciate Mr. Boyo for the beautiful presentation. Now, my question is, there is this trend that has been noticed in Nigerian economy for a very long time, and that is there's this disharmony between the monetary policy and the fiscal policies. And a lot of people have talked about it, but certainly not much has not been done about that. And that is the origin of all this that Mr. Boyo was telling us. CBN will be giving one figure, Minister of Finance will be giving another figure, and Budget and Planning Minister will be giving another figure. So what about the question that what can we do to bring out harmony between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy? Secondly, now the origin of intervention funds by CBN was because the banks are not lending to the real sector. Real sector, I mean agriculture and manufacturing. Now the CBN have to come out and say, okay, this intervention in this sector, at least to stimulate investment in those sectors. Now, you are saying from your presentation that it increased the excess liquidity in the system. So how do we go from here? When banks are not lending as favorable investment, favorable rates to these sectors, what can we do? I think CBN still has to continue with the intervention fund, but I want you to resolve the contradiction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are some people here. No, yeah, I think. Oh. Thank you very much. Because of time factor, you could not reach the area of recommendation, and that is what is the way forward? That's my question. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. My question is that I know Mr. Eniboyo is a well-published man. I've been reading his articles for years, and I just want to say you have done so much in writing. Can you spearhead a kind of movement? Maybe a new strategy is required to spearhead a kind of movement of economists and other like-minded people to make this government, at least the one we can see now, get to see what they need to see that technically they are just refusing to identify. That's my question.
My name is Remina from Covenant Investing. Sir, do you think effective implementation of the cashless policy in Nigeria can reduce inflation? And also, I also wanted to ask a question which Professor asked, that what is the way forward with all these problems raised? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Julian. I just want to follow what colleagues say here. Please, sir, I just want you to tell us. We are, all of us are Nigerian, and then you know much about this, but government has not heard much about it, even from outside. So what is your effort to talk to the present government about all these problems that you let us see? We are not talking of revolution or anything. Have you been able to talk to them? And then maybe you can hear from them.
There is a simple observation. If I have to quote Albert Einstein, he said, we cannot solve the significant problems that affect us with the same level of thinking that brought the problem in the first place. It looks like the level of thinking that are creating our problem has been there for the past 30 years. And we are thinking of solving that problem with the same level of thinking. Everybody, every intelligent person knows that we will be running around in cycles. I don't believe that people in authority are so narrow-minded that they don't know that we need to elevate our level of thinking. Is there any vested interest that is preventing elevating the level of thinking in order to solve the problem we have? Because there's no doubt we are still going to go downhill with the level of thinking we are operating now. Because that is what brought our problem in the first place.
We will ask again. Let him answer this set.
My name is Kain David. Sir, I am an economist, not an activist. We've been talking and talking and talking. Every day we have conferences, we have gatherings, while we rub our minds and we get solutions to problems of Nigeria. Please, what other strategy can we use? Because I think we've been talking and talking, the government is not ready to listen to us. What other strategy can we use to solve the nation's problem?
We will hold on of questions now.
Thank you very much indeed. Please permit me to sit down. At about 70, you start complaining that for too long. Anyhow, the reality, I don't need to convince you. This is very clear. If you say that what the Yoruba say, omiti for your law or something, and then you consider that the solution to remedy that omi is to pour more omi into it. That is what it means when you say you already admit that excess liquidity is a problem in the country, and then you think that the best way to solve it is to add more liquidity. You believe that the CBN is being a good Samaritan coming to help, which is rather unfortunate. It is not so. They are actually adding to the wound that they have themselves created. Because the CBN, you say the banks are not lending, therefore the CBN comes to help. Why are the banks not lending?
the banks are not lending, and if you are the bank manager or the owner of the bank, and I also describe you as an angel with angelic qualities, and you find that your own government is prepared to borrow from you at 18%, and the government's loan is risk-free, come rain, come shine, the government will pay you 18%. Will you look at the real sector where cost of funds is 25%? Is that possible? No, because you are a banker, you are there to satisfy the interests of your shareholders. So you want to, because somebody who is borrowing at 25% to build an industry, it's a foregone conclusion that it will be a failure. So it is not right for you even to think, but I understand that that is the level of brainwashing that has gone on, to believe that the CBN is helping the banks because the banks are not lending, when the CBN is responsible for making the banks to lend and for creating a market that would make it possible for other people to also borrow. What have I done on this matter? Spearhead and advocacy. I don't know what else I can do after 15 years of constantly writing, not just once a month, 4 times in a month in 3 major newspapers, 2 of them on the back page. In 2002, for your information, when this inspiration, because I call it, I say it's an inspiration that opened my eyes to these things. First came, we were made to present a paper to the National Economic Intelligence Committee in Abuja in August 2002. By the time we finished, Professor Ayagi was in charge. He was amazed. He said, "Where does this happen?" That is the reform I was providing. And I said, we are the aberration. No country earns dollars, converts it to naira, puts it in the system, and yields excess liquidity. So we are the abnormal, we are making abnormal reactions. So since then, apart from over almost 1,000 articles, I have made over 50 presentations to the Manufacturers Association, the Chamber of Commerce, quantity surveyors, you mentioned the National Labour Congress, the whole lot, at my own expense. I have also printed pamphlets. This is one of them, and I will make do to give about 10 copies of this to the University of Lagos Library. The others may be shared about. So the reality is that I'll do something else, but this is something that will transform not only Nigeria, but transform the other economies in Africa. Because why? My observation is that the same mistakes are being made in other African economies. They celebrate inflation rates of 15, 16, 20% when you can never expect to grow against countries that have inflation rates of 1%, 2%, and cost of funds is 4 or 5%. The cashless issue, you see, again, this is one of the things. The cashless thing is a good thing, no doubt about it. But the reality, of course, is that if excess liquidity is already a problem, introducing a cashless scheme that enables you to facilitate transactions and make transactions. In other words, it makes it possible for you to use 1 naira, for example, 10 times in a day, instead of, and velocity of circulation is also equal to what? Increase in liquidity. So technically, it is defective. Yes, I can understand that, you know, it facilitates transactions and things like that, but it defeats the purpose of liquidity, of management of liquidity. They say, don't pay no. Of course they do know. I have engaged with the central bank. The central bank doesn't want to hear any name like Henry Boyo or anything like that. I have gone with the manufacturers, the president of the Manufacturers Association, because I myself am a member of the National Council of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. I'm a manufacturer. I'm not a jobber. I don't have anything to do with government, and I don't intend to. So we went there and explained, and the deputy governor of the central bank said, Mr. Sarah, that he said, sorry, it's not our fault because in 2007, Solido wanted to do it, but for exactly what you were saying, but the government said no, they have no authority. But the reality, of course, is that I had been on this bandwagon for about 5 years with a lot of abuse from the central bank governor at that time, before he did a somersault and accepted the reality of kicking your foot against the nails and wanted to put this advocacy forward. But it was kicked down because why? He locked it on to the action of redenomination of the naira and printing new naira, for which he had no authority. And the Attorney General, Androaka, told him so. But that is one aspect of it. The other aspect, he had the authority to do that because he has, under the 2007 Act, the mandate to manage price stability. And for that, he could have done anything. But because he wanted, I believe, another term, he stepped back rather than, disturb the chickens kind of thing. So, vested interest. Well, put this way, the banks themselves, okay, would make about 700 billion naira the main beneficiaries. In addition, the banks also have the largesse of playing around with the foreign exchange earnings we have, since they are auctioned to them. They also involved in a lot of round tripping and all that type of thing. You find that Nigerian banks have established branches all over the place. Indeed, I keep asking the question. 7 years or 8 years ago, Soludo gave the banks, about 14 Nigerian banks, $7 billion to assist them to enter into the international market. I wrote an article on that occasion, that at what interest and on what terms. Nobody answered me. Today it is 2017, almost 10 years after. Nobody knows what happened to that money. I have written several articles. They don't. That money seems to have disappeared into the bank. So if you want maybe a primary benefactor of all this nonsense, it certainly is the banks. And of course, who owns the banks? Well, thank you very much. So the recommendation is very simple. You see, when you want to solve a problem, let's assume I'm not a medical person or pharmacist or whatever. Do know that if you have malaria, you can take Panadol, you can take pain relievers, you can put Pemogene or things on your body and all that, until you get the active ingredient against the, I think it's the falciparum something, until that particular one is attacked, you will never get a solution. So the same thing with our case. If you want to resolve these contradictions we have in the economy, the last page I was going to show you was how to reform this. And this would be simply by stopping CBN from capturing the dollars in the first place and substituting Naira. Once you stop CBN from doing that, every other thing would fall in place. But if CBN does that, how will they get all the money they are stealing? How would they be able to cover up all this nonsense? How would you continue? How would it be possible to stop fuel subsidy and all this type of thing? How would it be possible for banks to sit on their bottom and earn 18% interest? So there's an array of defense. People who will tell you, don't mind this man, he's not saying anything. But ask them specific questions, I'm sure they cannot answer. So once you stop that, what happens is that the CBN would now pay, when it wants to pay that $1 billion I'll show you, it will pay dollar certificates, like a check. Let each beneficiary take their check to the bank. The bank will change it to Naira. No additional new Naira has come into the market to expand the liquidity base. Now you are not also auctioning. Everybody with dollar certificates, maybe 36 state governors, 700 local governments, MBAs, they have dollar certificates. They are busy trying to get Naira. There is little Naira in the system. The price of the Naira would be stronger. This is not magic. This is not science or anything. This is just common sense. And once you do that, the banks will find that, the CBN is not coming to mop up excess liquidity at 18%. What will happen? They have to survive. They have to look at the real sector and see who they can lend money to. They'll come and beg you to take money.
Well, I think this has been an extremely stimulating afternoon, and there's work to be done. We've got to use a different kind of thinking to solve the problem. And we want to thank Mr. Boyo. This has been wonderful. And I think I was right in stopping him so that you could ask the questions and we still got the end of the lecture. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure you can. Well, on behalf of the University of Lagos, the 12th UNILAG Annual Research Fair. We present this special award to Professor Godini G. Dara as a plenary speaker, 2017 Annual Conference at the Fair. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. We will call on you again. I would also want to thank Google to have your lecture. Thank you very much. I want to say how it has been a pleasure listening to you. We have been reading your column for many years. On behalf of the University of Lagos, the Conference Planning Committee, and the staff and students here, present to you this special award, sir. As the plenary of stimulating our vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. A Toyota car, MUS 356BL, was sent to your full. Some will go into the library, like it's been said. But just in case you are from out of University of Lagos, you want some to go to universities that are represented here, just come to this table and prove so that we can give you some to take back to your university. At this point, I want to say a big thank you to say that we will move to the parallel sessions. The 6 rooms. Room 1, Professor Jegede is going to chair, and the rapporteur is Dr. Obalola. Room 2, PMS, PHM and Science, Professor Olayinka will chair, Dr. Akode is a rapporteur.
What we are trying to say here is the idea that so many people are talking about national issues. Perhaps the entire theme of this conference, governance, national development, and then we have right? So many problems. And then we are trying to see identify words and then lyrics of musicians like Ayla and Alright, so we go into the idea of emotion of the city. Set back to object for their next time next pass. For their green, we're talking about strong their trees, their shrubs, and their deep filtration and purifying the water, underground water. Now, these plants, when we got to that site, we were able to discover that in that place there was a mandatory law by the owners of the estate that anybody who has the setback of his house must be the setback. And by doing that, that place was regarded as economically sustainable, socially sustainable, and environmentally. We also have for this or other cities in this region. We have a responsibility to not see open spaces as something that is an afterthought or something that is not needed, but we should see it as green infrastructure, and infrastructure as relevant as green infrastructure. as important as air, water, and food. I'll close with the words of Kappa. The way we can sustain our livelihood as human beings is for us to realize that biophilia, which talks about human natural movement towards nature, is the only way we can sustain our life. Open spaces are not derelict spaces. They are not afterthoughts, but they should be incorporated as important infrastructure, just like air, water, and food. Thank you.
Skill and competence.
It's only the initial cost that is expensive. The maintenance is not expensive. It's the same thing as maintaining your natural what you say as maintaining your natural.
Any comments or questions? Yes, ma'am. Whether the impact is as natural, maybe you can use this to track. And you said the cost is not expensive, but as low as what?
As strong, if not stronger than the natural, because they are retained by process of facility. It's like ankylosed. Ankylosed is that attached without any hold. While the natural cheese can still price it, but that dental implant is fixed. Cannot. So as long as there's no infection, have your implant so that something like
Any other comments or questions? I want to bring
have a good visit, go to the dentist and tell them, I need an implant. I need an implant. Not a dentist. I need an implant.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr.
much for a smart presentation. I was looking at the first hypothesis, because first hypothesis, where you said you have a significant relationship between frequency of prayer and religiosity. But the title gives me an impression that you want to use religiosity and spirituality to predict cultural intelligence, not to measure frequency of prayer and religiosity. Then again, I was wondering which religion did you really look at? Because so that we can say in this religion it is like this, in this religion it is like this. So I have an issue with that.
I want to criticize the topic, religiosity and cultural intelligence, because this topic, particular topic, is very sensitive in Nigeria. When we look at the topic, religiosity, cultural intelligence, most of the religion we practice here in Nigeria, the predominant religion like Christianity and Islam, they are foreign. And mostly Christianity and in Islam, they make us believe that you want to pray in Arabic. That is the language God understands. That's what we make us believe. In Christianity, they present to God like God is a white man. We have a white man. Outside the country, when you go to Asia, the Asians' gods are like Asians. My question here is, when it comes to spiritual and cultural intelligence and religiosity, in Africa, there cannot be intelligence in religiosity in the sense that we don't believe in our own culture and ourselves. We don't believe in our own gods. So how can there be I don't see the synergy between the two, because you can only thank you for your considering the sensitivity and the technicality of this particular work. Can you explain those? This is what I expect to write
Last, I just want to put important from what she's saying. The religions you are measuring are borrowed. Supposing you use indigenous religion, you can measure cultural intelligence. That's what she's saying. So you should look at the title again. Yes, again, these religions are spoken to.
I want to take up on your topic. Your topic suggests that you are going to conduct a correlation. What you are doing is something like y is a function of x. You are saying that cultural intelligence can be explained by religiosity and spirituality. And I'm not saying you conducting a correlation analysis just again. So that's what it is.
Well, thank you. For the question of the difference between spirituality and religiosity, religiosity itself, the general. Religiosity itself is the practice, your belief of an organized institution, the church, the mosque.
The questions that we have had are if you take Islamic religion, they have three times so if they pray 5 times, that's the normal prayer. But if you take Christianity, they pray anytime. So if a Muslim prays 5 times, he has prayed. If a Muslim prays 5 times, they say he has not even prayed today.
Religiosity is basically based on the belief and practices of your own religion. But spirituality is your own personal experience. Your own experiential meditation with that religion. Religion is okay. We have a doctrine for a certain church. You abide by that. But then my own, what am I doing? What intrinsic or extrinsic benefits, yes, do I have with that spirituality? It's based on the religion.
First of all, I would like to, my name is Nathan, but yes, we work together on this. I would like to state that cultural intelligence is a construct. It was a novel construct we found and we decided to explore. And the idea is, even if we have measures of culture, it's just like a CQ, it's a called the CQ quotient, just like we have an IQ. Cultural intelligence is a construct that measures better cognitive motivation and behavior, and that's the idea, to explore that construct in Nigeria. And that's why we had to do a standardization in Nigeria. And that was, we still plan that in the next study we're going to do some sort of factor analysis to confirm factor 1, and that's the reason why we explore cultural intelligence. But for religiosity in itself, it's really about how, not necessarily about the religion or how novel or whether the religion is foreign or here. It's about that level of religious awareness or religious consciousness that you should affiliate yourself to a religious association, you should follow their doctrines, you should believe in the existence of a supreme being in itself, whether it's external or internal. So these things are construct. They're not necessarily a measure of how much you believe in a religion or not a unique religion, but just a construct of religiosity in itself, that religious awareness or consciousness. And that's why, as distinctively as these variables are, we tried to explore them. It was quite a bold attempt to see. We didn't even expect to see significant correlation, because one is measuring cultural quotient, one is measuring religiosity.
In 2014, the award involves a $5 million down payment and $200,000 annually for life for the recipients. So, traditional African leaderships are applied by ancient kingdoms such as Umna in eastern Nigeria, preach teen spirit, peaceful coexistence, and prosperity, according to Ife 2010. The Ubuntu philosophy of Southern Africa, for instance, preached love, social justice, peace, and interconnectedness, as well as egalitarianism, the panacea for African development. Statement of the problem: the numerous challenges bedeviling the African continent, including associated poverty, corruption, unemployment, risky illegal migrations, election rigging, insecurity, cyber wars, ethnic hatred, and religious intolerance, call for insightful examination of our inherited Western democratic leadership and governance practices. Such practices do not resonate with our African cultures and values. African copycat democracy creates room for the imposition of bad leaders, since they are usually imposed by kingmakers. Quite often they fail even before their tenures begin. This creates disaffection and unrest that culminates in the agitation for change and subsequent termination of tenure. It is in light of the foregoing that the proposed autocratic leadership model is intended to bridge the leadership gap and make prescription for a truly African leadership style that is culture and value-based. But specifically, the study attempts to navigate worldwide leadership crisis from both African traditional leadership crisis and Western democratic models, and develop a leadership style that is consistent with African culture based on African ideas and values in order to foster development of the continent. Then we talk about conceptualizing statocratic leadership. Statocratic leadership is a call to service and not a despotic suppression of subordinates or followers. The model recognizes the one great man who is committed to serve his people in a humane, caring, and compassionate manner, but with undiluted authority. The methodology. The study is purely conceptual, as it relies on published texts and articles for secondary data. It employs a qualitative narrative that belies the interpretive philosophy. Then, 4. Why Africa needs autocratic leaders?
Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research, Professor Oluwatoyin. Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Services, Professor Kolashade. The Registrar and Secretary to Council, Dr. Mrs. Taiwo Kolashade, the Finance. We also like our assessors who have worked hard over the past 3 days to assess your papers and posters that have been presented at this conference to please join us on the high table. I'd like to call Professor G.O.G. Awusman from LASA.
Thank you. For the past 5 years, how we have learned what we have done, how far we have brought us to appreciate yourself. Thank you very much. And I know that this has been one of the most successful of all the conferences. Do I have a yes for yes? Yes. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the last 3 days was one for those of us who had to learn on Monday. We have gone through a series of plenary sessions, different presentations, and it is time to hear the results, the communique of those presentations. It gives me pleasure to call Professor S.A. Okunuga to read the communique. Please let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Vice Chancellor, Professor Rahman Bello, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, the Registrar, all other members on the high table, especially our great assessors. We, like the MC have said, we have come to the end of this 12th UNILAG Research Conference. And just before I read the communique, some of the observations of the assessors are very important that we should mention them so that all of us can take note when we are presenting our posters. You will recall that the assessors have gone around 2-3 times to go through the posters, and they have the following comment that there should be uniformity of posters across the faculties, that title of some works are not captured in the content of the poster, and that some titles are too complex, that we should make the title to be as simple as possible. Then the font size of some posters are too small, so and that affects the scoring of some of us. And then also the regular layout of the posters. Some of us were given a code where it is assigned to a faculty. We go and place our poster in another, among another group, and that also will not be okay. And finally, that participant, we should make the participant to follow the format, standard format. So by the time we are going to have the next conference, by God's grace, we are going to give out the standard format that everybody will have as a layout for making the poster. These are few of the things we mentioned. Let me go straight to the communique. The 12th UNILAG Annual Research Conference and Fair with the theme Diversification in a Developing Economy, Promoting Academia-Industry Collaboration, took place at the University of Lagos from August 15 to 17, 2017. The conference was declared open by our Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Rahman Bello. The conference had in attendance all the 3 Deputy Vice Chancellors of the University of Lagos, Professor Oluwatoyin, Professor Deni Gujafo, Professor Kolashade Bushola, and also the Registrar, Dr. Taiwo Ipaye, the Bossa, the University Bossa, Dr. Latif Odekunle, University Librarian, Dr. Misolukemi Fadion. We have also the CPC chairman, Professor Okanamo, all the deans present, Professor also, we have Professor Chukwu, Director of Quality Assurance, and eminent professors also are present during the opening ceremony. The conference had over 600 participants, which include academia from various universities within and outside Nigeria. The keynote address titled Governance and National Development was delivered by Senator Oluremi Tinubu, OON. Distinguished personalities also delivered papers at various plenary sessions. These include Professor Felix Famoyi from Central Michigan University, USA, and delivered a paper titled International Migration and National Development in Nigeria. Professor Owasoye also delivered a paper, that's the chairman of ICPC, titled Resource Management, Corporate Governance, and Law. We also had we also have Mr. Waheed Olabuju, Middle Past Acting MD, Bank of Industry, and delivered a paper titled Made in Nigeria, Vehicle to the Diversification of the Economy. We have Professor Emeritus Osato Iwa Osage, a distinguished professor of the University of Lagos, and delivered a paper titled From Research to Application in Assisted Reproduction. We had Professor Godini Gabriel Dara, a paper on the arts and contemporary national issues. He was unavailably absent, and the paper was delivered by Dr. Abosede Afolayan. And the last but not the least was delivered by Mr. Henry Boyo, the CEO Allied Technical Company Systems Limited. And the paper he delivered was titled For the Successful Resolution of Contradiction in the Nigeria's Economy. We also had a total of 242 oral paper presentations and 91 poster presentations were recorded. Observations. The conference observes as follows: that one, that the challenges of governance impinge on our national development, that research is critical for solving societal problems. There is no high premium placed on education in the country. African scholars only contributed 2% of the over 5 million research papers in the scientific community in the last 10 years. Development is critical and is marked by the ability of a nation to provide qualitative life for our people. Nigeria needs real leadership in all spheres of our corporate existence. The success of developed nations to effectively manage corruption is dependent on the enrichment of transparency in all phases of public life. The level of ethnic rivalry in Nigeria and the entrenchment of parochial consciousness as opposed to national consciousness has for a long time made it impossible for her to produce leaders who exude impeccable and noble character and who are qualified and ready to spend themselves for development of the nation. International migrants are considered as a drain of the country's resources rather than as a positive force for national development. Many facts about the nature and magnitude of Nigerian migration and their relations to broader development processes are unknown. Despite the decline in the observation of indigenous ceremonies and cultural practices, the arts have remained a potent force for the regulation and control of private and public affairs. The greatest threat faced by artists and workers in the cultural industry is the failure of Nigerian government to make education available and affordable by all. Excess liquidity and surplus of cash or money in the economy is one of our major problems. And the most important responsibility of every government is security and the management of inflation at levels which support investments and promote increasing economy and social welfare. So at the end of this conference, the following recommendations were made. Drawing from our various observations, the conference recommends that 1. The leadership in Nigeria must provide a conducive environment for real and quality education. Nigerian state should put in place legislation, structures, processes, and practices that promote transparency in governance. 3. Structures and institutions that will accommodate and protect the interests and values of the coexisting ethnic nationalities must be put in place. 4. States should be allowed to generate their funds and control their resources and determine their developmental goals. Migration and development policies should recognize and respect the basic human rights of migration. Next, he said, government should address lack of data on migration in Nigeria. Government should do a self-assessment on how the country is achieving the objective of the 2015 National Migration Policy. Next one is, in order to enhance the development contribution of migrants, it is necessary to create an environment for development and investment. Next to that is, there should be a commodity-based industrialization strategy under which business source for raw materials domestically, thereby supporting local content development. There should be significant attention towards micro, small, and medium enterprises, thereby enhancing their sustainability and societal impact. As part of the political restructuring being advocated, Nigeria must strive to achieve 100% literacy rate and digital efficiency within a decade. And finally, in our recommendation, we have that there should be a payment reform to stop CBN from capturing the dollars from the economy and substituting it with naira. These are the recommendations made in this communique at the end of this conference. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, the theme this year is governance and national development, issues and implication. And like you said, we dealt with it in our own ways, and the communique is out. But this is the time we've all been waiting for. That time we are privileged to shake the hand of the Vice Chancellor, because at this point he will be presenting awards to conference and faculty-based researchers for the year 2017. And I know everybody, I heard somebody breathe so deeply, but I know that I pray it shakes my hands. All right, we'll start with the Faculty of Arts. And I'm going to start from the third position is 17 ART 126. Could I have the Vice Chancellor upstanding, please, sir? So that he can shake us. Please, a round of applause for him. And the paper is Aesthetics of Local Materials in Innovation and Technology, due to BCC. Please come out with it. Let's encourage. Quickly follow them. The second position is the Arts and Contemporary National Issues, ARIS, IX. And the fourth position in the faculty is 17 ART 133. Installation art as a means of interpreting issues confronting contemporary African art, Alao LO.
First best researcher. We have second.
We have second.
Okay, first second.
Well, it is my pleasure to hand over to you the first or the best researcher
Alao LO.
for the Faculty of Arts, Alao L. Lukman Omotayo.
And I was told that you also won it last year, sir.
Yes.
Meanwhile, he's from UNILAG.
Well, members of the Faculty of Arts, you are now going to take it for 3 years. And then you should not report next year. Even though it's our alumnus at the same time. So we congratulate you and wish you all the best.
These have been second position because there's no third position. It's 17 BUS 131. Development and validations of. Oh, okay. They said because there's a tie. So development and validation of abusive delegation skills for managers. Oluwafemi, OJ, and Malo Mobola.
This is art. Second. Aris.
Yes, please.
Second.
Should start from the rear.
Yeah, you should start from
Start from the third, come to the first.
Second and first.
But you didn't wait for us to go down.
Okay. Well, the second best special for arts is the Aris LF. Congratulations. Administrative part of University of Lagos. Your staff. One second best Faculty of Arts.
Second position, development and validation of abusive delegation skills for managers. Oluwafemi, OJ, and Malo Mobola.
No third position. All right.
Certificate. Certificate.
Okay, second best special in this administration. Congratulations.
Fourth position, business administration. The nexus between total quality management, job satisfaction, and employee work engagement. Oluwafemi, Olaoluwa James, and Okod Samuel this year.
Well, the Faculty of Administration Blessed Research Award goes to you. Oluwafemi, congratulations. And I wish you desire to retain this next year. Look forward to hearing that. Congratulations.
Next one.
Position. Hepatoprotective effect of Launer taraxifolia ethanol relief extract. On carbon tetrachloride reduced toxicity is praglitolivat. James, AB, Ikujuni, AP, Samuel, TA, Olashore, HSA, Babalola, OM, and Magajola.
Congratulations.
Second position is in vitro safety screen of the hydroethanolic leaf extract of Musa sapiensis leaf, Salako OA, Kid P, Heroes M, Akindele AJ, Adeyemi OO, Palunke J, and Ibrahim S.
They can go for answer.
Third position, in-house method for the detection of mRNA in plasma samples of breast cancer patients
using cyber brain reverse transcriptase qPCR. Samuel T.A., James A.B., Negedu S., Balogun O.A., and Magaduela O.A.
Also, that's good. Samuel.
Congratulations to Samuel and your team winning both the first prize and the third prize. Congratulations.
We'll go to Faculty of Clinical Sciences, and the second position is A. Oje Wumi, Stefan M. Akinsulier, Akomu A.S., and Tian S.L. And the award is DNA polymorphism at HB0 MYB loci, associated with focal hemoglobin
Yes, there is certificate.
No, we can't hear what she's calling.
Adeyemo T.A. Ojewumi O.O.
Congratulations.
Adeyemo T.A. Adeyeye A.O. J. and Roberts A.A. Best faculty. Clinical sciences.
Clinical Sciences Best Research Award. Congratulations.
Faculty of Education. Third position goes to Chukwu NS, Esiogu Gio, and Idan. Faculty of Education.
Best research.
Chukwu NS, Esiogu Gio, and Idan.
He's not yet.
Congratulations.
Second position goes to Madwagu et al. Madwagu et al.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. This must have had to do with food.
Hospitality. First position, Best Researcher Award goes to Anyekwa.
This one is a repeat performance. Congratulations.
Faculty of Engineering. Third position, Aswelinem, GA, Ajayi OO, and Ojolu SJ. Ojolu SJ.
Ojolo.
Ojolu. Second position in that faculty goes to Foreign CO, Ashaolu OO, and Fobola OP. First position, Faculty of Engineering, goes to Bello S.A. Agustoye J. O. Agency J.A. and Hassan S. Correlation between experimental and vertical tensile properties.
of epoxy aluminum particulate. Faculty of Pharmacy, third position goes to Olubake, OA, Sego, AO, and Aino, E. Faculty of Pharmacy, Olubake, OA, Sego, AO, and Aino, BA. Second position, Faculty of Pharmacy goes to Ilesami, OT, Ibe, FR, Afolayo, OO, Oseibe, D, Osaibo, D, Adeyemo, OO, Adeyemi, OO. First position, pharmacy goes to Ariaga, AI, Usman, SO, Akaje, EO, Shikoya, K, Opanduga, O, and Akomu, S. The topic, antiretroviral therapy in Lagos, Nigeria. Potential drug-drug interaction occurrence in adult patients on antiretroviral therapy in Lagos, Nigeria. Faculty of Science, third position goes to Vitaly C. Ozebo and Michael A. Akinola. Second. Vitaly C. Ozebo and Peter E. Ikae. Second. I've taken the second position. As well. First position goes to Adedamola S. Arojojoli. We'll move on to Faculty of Social Sciences. Second position goes to Alex Uriri Adebayo, Akonju, Mariam Odewo, and Oluwa Dari. First position goes to Shakiruddin Odunuga, Adebayo, Akonjola, Badiru Aro, and Olayeka Susonya. Household primary healthcare expenditure and its effect on under 5 child health households. Thank you very much. We've had people who supported us for this program. They've supported us in several ways. And we would like to call on Fuman Chemicals, who have been sponsors for this program. I want to appreciate them with a token.
But the food is here. The food is here.
We thank Fuman for being there for us every year. The Fuman is there.
We would like to call on UNILAG Consult, our own UNILAG Consult, who have also supported us for this conference. UNILAG Consult. We would also like to call on Vital Home. Vital Home. Somebody that's over the years.
Vital Home people.
Vital Home has always supported us all through the years.
She won't come out though.
So, Father is coming on behalf of Vital Home. I appreciate you. I send the admission to the chairman. You know you are the water chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
We also like to appreciate the Faculty of Engineering, whose being paid for his members of staff to be here. Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps we didn't hear the names of names of a few faculties, and that's because there are no awards.
I'm delighted to be back here at the tail end of the 12th annual conference and assist us to infuse some quality assurance into the exercise so that whatever we do here can be compared to any other, so that this conference will have to be a sustainable one and will have to assist our colleagues, both young and old, to exhibit what they are doing. The next stage of it will be how to make money from research. And this is what I keep saying. We are not academics for, but going beyond here, going beyond now. I want to see a University of Lagos in 5 to 6 years' time with so many patents and a few of them being exploited for money purposes. By the time we have 2 or 3 patents being fully implemented, the money will keep coming. Not only to you as a researcher, but also to the University of Lagos. I think that's the objective, that's the main drive, and that's the essence of the conference. Because that's why it's called a fair, so that the town will now come into the gown to be able to see what we're doing and be able to now ask you to come and do things for the town to make money and make facilities available to the people of Nigeria and beyond. So I think I want to challenge us all not to see research as just for paper writing. Yeah, at the young level, at the low level, yes, you need the papers to move on, but it's not all the time that. When you come up with something that is patentable, the patent is going to earn you more than the paper. The Research and Patent Office will be getting back to you and will be able to advise you how to move on. The University of Lagos will not be poor and has no business being poor, and it shall not be poor.
Amen.
We shall be able to make resources for the University of Lagos through research, and that's the major access to money for the universities that we are trying to run after. We also will make money from research for the university and for ourselves. I want to congratulate all the award winners today. I want to challenge you to keep winning, and that this really come, you don't appreciate what exactly you've done and what you want today until you come in later in your life and you are before panels and things have been asked to you. Your CV is being enriched, and we encourage you to do more in that regard so that very soon most of you will rise to the top of your, the pinnacle of your endeavors. Thank you very much. Congratulate you all, and I wish us very good evening and very rewarding time ahead of us. Thank you very much, and congratulations. On that note, I declare the 12th annual Research Conference and Fair Event of Lagos closed.